So that'll be part of it. But I think it is basically the necessity of money. People need to earn money. They are going back to work. And actually, provided we're observing social distancing, it's not necessarily a bad thing unless we reach a point, unless we get to a moment where people just disrespect lockdown completely. And that's why I think it is really, really important that before very long, the government sets out some kind of idea of a roadmap for us. Let's get back to Keir Starmer. I thought he was pretty professional and did pretty well today. As a barrister, I'd have been surprised if he hadn't. Comment on Dominic Raab on Twitter. Shamil says, did Raab just brag? The government have built 7 hospitals very quickly with help from the army on live TV. He did. And the one thing you have to say, Shamil and others, is the one thing the government have done is to provide a huge number of hospital beds. You know, we've got these Nightingale hospitals that have been opened up, but currently we've got nearly 40,000 empty hospital beds, and a lot of people who need operations, heart operations, post-stroke care, cancer diagnosis, who are not getting them. And I thought it was horrifying to hear Carol Sikora, the cancer expert who appeared on my Sunday program a couple of weeks ago, saying that if the current lockdown in hospitals, because they're there for COVID-19, was to continue, that could kill 60,000 people from cancer by the end of the year. I genuinely believe, hi Nigel, I genuinely believe the government is doing its best, but a bit more Chris Whitty would be welcome. I'm tired of hearing we're doing our best. I'm tired of hearing we're working night and day. No one doubts how hard they're working, that's not the debate. But if they weren't working hard in a national emergency, something would be wrong. The question is about their competence. The Chris Whitty bit I agree with. I think whatever Chris Whitty is one of the 3 on that platform, it's worth following, it's worth listening to, because he's franker and more honest than all the rest of them. Let's go to Haringey and speak to Steve. Steve, what did you make of Starmer today, and were his charges fair?
I think it's entirely fair. How could we do an exercise? So many times it's been said we did an exercise on this and we still managed to miss the boat. I just wanted to point out one really simple thing. The reason fast food restaurants operate so quickly is that when they see a demand coming as it arrives at the door, they change their stock levels instantly. They just turn up a dial and say stock level 5, and they'll put enough food in what they call the chutes. It's ready. You know, the staff are already doing it. By the time that demand arrives, it's catered for. So if you have a situation where there is a potential pandemic, surely you just turn the stock levels up on the PPE and all the other things you need.
Well, they did it. I mean, Steve, let's be fair. In terms of producing hospital beds, I mean, I think what happened at the Excel Centre was incredible. You know, you send in the army, you send in a successful business figure, and within 7 days, okay, I know it was there already, but in 7 days it's kitted out and ready to take up to 4,000 people. Sadly, we're turning patients away from there because we haven't got enough qualified nurses. But that's
because we haven't got the staff, we've got the space and the beds, but we don't have the capacity with the staff, which is why we're starting to use the army. Okay, but there's been this debate about the PPE, and really that one could have been dealt with by dialing up the stock level.
And it didn't happen. Yeah, it didn't happen,
and there's no excuse for that.
I mean, what is unforgivable is to hear companies who say they said to the government, we've got PPE, do you want it? Not getting an answer, and then exporting it to other parts of Europe, and somehow...
It's very difficult when you get, in all fairness, they have now explained, you know, they've got over 8,000 pieces of contact to go to. I mean, for goodness sake, you know, we've only had 8,000, and they do have a lot of complicated criteria, and I'm not in denial about that. I'm really not. I still go back to what I'm saying, they could have dialed up the stock levels.
Well, I mean, Steve, I'll tell you what is very interesting. You know, 8-10 days ago, every single opinion poll about the status of the government, what people thought about the job they were doing, overwhelmingly showed support for the government, right? You know, and people want to support the government, particularly, you know, when we're going through very, very difficult times. What is interesting is we're seeing a bit of a change in that. And I'd said on Sunday I thought PPE would dominate our thoughts this week. Snap poll reveals 65% of the country says the government has done a bad job supplying personal protective equipment. So, Steve, I've been saying they're behind the curve. You've put it more accurately in saying they should have turned up the dial. I think you're absolutely right. I thank you for your call. Leslie says on Twitter, I'm currently stuck in a traffic jam on the A12 heading home to Hornchurch. Why? Leslie, people are going back to work. That's what's happening. Lenny in Ashford in Kent is the next caller. Lenny, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Well, he done very well today,
With
Kyler,
a load
but
of one
very,
subs-
very simply, he's got no opposition. Because the Conservative Party at the moment, anyone can go up against them, and all they got to do is tell the truth. They haven't got to exaggerate or do anything, just tell the truth, and they make the Conservatives look bad.
When Boris, and we're all pleased he's recovering, and obviously it's going to take time. He's been through a rotten few days, my goodness me. But when Boris gets back, do you think Boris will admit that they've actually been slow on the implementation of lockdown, on delivery of PPE? Do you think Boris will sort of come clean and apologise, or will they continue with the same lie?
Well, they only seem to know how to lie. Now, can I just explain something to you very quickly, and then it'll explain it all? I bought my family's mask in January because the Chinese stopped exporting in January all their medical clothes. So
Right.
I found that out and went and supplied all my family with masks. Now,
Well done,
if
you.
I knew that, why didn't the Conservative Party go looking for a new provider if the Chinese had stopped exporting?
Because, Lenny, they underestimated the threat, point one, and point two, at the end of February, they could have perhaps started to do this, but the second point is that our official government policy since 2016 and pandemic planning, our official policy has been that of herd immunity. So we started this in completely the wrong place, didn't we?
I totally agree with you, Nigel. I find it very difficult to disagree with you.
Well, Lenny, you and I are at one on this. I'm sure there are others that are not. Thank you. And by the way, if you think Keir Starmer's comments are unreasonable, unfair, untimely criticism in the middle of a national emergency, you're more than entitled to tell me why. You ring 03456060973 and we will get you on. But for now, it is 6:30. It's time for the news with Bill Overton.
The Foreign Secretary's admitted lockdown measures are tough going, but insists they must stay to maintain progress against the coronavirus. The number of people who've died in UK hospitals after contracting COVID-19 has passed 18,000. The Health Secretary's told MPs we're at the peak now of the outbreak. 15 social care workers are among the lives lost. The Chief Medical Officer for England, Chris Whittier, said it's likely there'll be many more deaths in care homes. And football's National League clubs have voted to end their season immediately. We've yet to decide on how to handle promotion and relegation. The weather, clear skies tonight, some frost and fog patches being forecast in places. Lower cloud further north and for Scotland with a low of 1 Celsius.
This is LVC. I'm Nick Ferrari. I'm bringing you a daily podcast with insight into everything you need to know about the coronavirus.
Block management from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. Talk to us today. Call 0800 888 6688 or visit abcestates.co.uk. The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, we're asking, was Keir Starmer fair? Was it right? Was it timely of him to say that the government has been behind the curve on virtually all of this from the beginning of this crisis? Too slow on testing, too slow on the lockdown, too slow on personal protective equipment. Before we get back to that, just a few thoughts from around the world. Donald Trump not backing off an inch. His line on halting immigration, he says, because there are nearly 30 million Americans have lost their jobs, he says it's to make sure Americans are first in line for jobs as well as stopping the virus. And you can kind of see that is the beginning of the big battle lines as we head towards the expected presidential election this November. Also, interestingly from America, the US state of Missouri is suing China for inflicting enormous death and suffering and economic losses on the world. And there's lots of talk of this. You know, the Chinese should be sued for hundreds of billions because they hid the truth about this virus in the beginning. I'm not sure. I really am not sure that suing China for money is going to get anywhere, but it does show you what the state of opinion is about China, certainly in America, and I think it's a growing feeling in parts of this country too. That's at least my own view. In Germany, the Germans are going to start human testing of a new vaccine at some point this week, just as we are. In Spain, which has been very badly hit, they're having a debate in Parliament about whether to extend lockdown by 2 weeks. And in Belgium, and deaths per million, Belgium, I'm afraid, has done worse than any other country in Europe. Far worse than Spain, far worse than Italy, worse even than us. And in Spain, they are beginning to ease lockdowns and to allow social gatherings at weekends of up to 10 people. So they're kind of the highlights that I can pick out today from around the world. But I'm keen to get back to your thoughts and your calls, because this is the first time that we've really seen Sir Keir Starmer, you know, who won that Labour leadership contest with an overwhelming majority. It's the first time we've really seen him in action. He was in the chamber. Dominic Raab for the government was in the chamber. There were 48 other MPs, and he didn't. I mean, it wasn't a savage attack on the government. It was done in quite a sort of calm, measured way. I thought he was quite professional. I think, personally, his criticisms are reasonable. Let's go to Southend on Sea and speak to Audrey and see what she thinks. Good evening, Audrey.
Hello there, Nigel.
Good evening. So, what did you make of it? You do?
Yes. But it wouldn't matter if it's Conservative or Labour anyway. They would both be at fault. They've had weeks to get ready for this. But there was a couple of other things that concern me. Why are nurses having to travel miles to have these tests? Why can't they be done in the hospitals where they work and then the test taken to wherever it has to go?
Audrey. Do you know, Audrey? Just to answer that quickly for you. In the USA, I know it's a much bigger country than ours, but in the USA there are 5,000 testing sites, and I read an account, Audrey, of some people working in a care home down in Poole in Dorset, and they were told to go up to Chessington in Surrey. It was a 160-mile round trip. So yeah, Audrey, for them to argue we've got the capacity to do these tests, they're actually failing on this. Yes.
Yes. And there was another concerning thing I saw this morning in the Star newspaper. That PPE equipment is being sent to Germany.
Well, yes, I'm afraid this is true. I mean, these are the companies who say they've contacted the government to say, we've got this equipment, do you want it? And they say that their requests have not been answered and they've got pre-existing contracts. So it is a complete and utter mess. Back to Starmer, Audrey. Let me ask you a question about Starmer. The job, of course, of opposition is to oppose and to do so, particularly in a crisis, in a constructive manner, in the hope that things get learned and we do things better. That's fine, and that's quite right in a democratic country that it should happen that way. Does there come a point, though, where Keir Starmer, rather than just criticising, does he need to start offering some alternatives himself?
Well, he could probably put some
agreed with your last point, which I hadn't before, which is you can't criticise all the time. It's very easy for Keir Starmer and Tony Blair to say everything's done too late. I mean, my understanding is it is not the politician's responsibility to organise logistics and supply in the NHS. They set policy. They set policy, and they
hang on. Normally, you'd be right. Normally, you'd be right, because there is a command structure that exists with our health services in this country, and of course, procurement is very much a part of that. But what has happened here, Reg, is that the government have declared force majeure, and they've taken control of all of this.